How's it going, fellow Bat family and Gothamites out there? Welcome to not technically, well, kind of the Batman 2022, but today's discussion series episode is centering around the upcoming Gotham PD series. The return of Gotham, kind of, but in a much different kind of direction, if you will. Now, I don't know how many people are kind of currently sleeping on this right now, because I think I've done a part 1 of this before, ages ago. It was like one of my first discussion series installments before I went fully into the Batman ones. And yeah, today's going to be kind of a total clean slate. You guys have submitted some very, very interesting questions I can't wait to dive into and speculate and theorize with you guys about, because we can't forget that this upcoming Gotham PD series is a spin-off to the Batman. It is quite literally set in Batman Year 1. Now, the Batman movie is set during Batman Year 2, precisely 1 year, 6 months in. This is Batman Year 1. It could be from anywhere from day 2 to 12 months in. You get the idea. So there's a lot of things that I can't wait to talk about. I have no idea if this video will do as well as the Batman ones, but it's kind of a shame if it doesn't, because this series, there is a lot to be excited about, and I just don't think as many people are aware of it as they are the Batman movie. I think a lot of people are starting to forget that, oh, holy crap, there is technically a whole live-action series surrounding the GCPD and a cop fighting for his soul, in Matt Reeves' words, and then how all of this is going to connect up to the Batman. What can we see set up that movie? Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities here. So go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. And of course, subscribe for more videos just like this. And let me know if you want to see more of these. So SM4 Carnage asks, finally, been waiting for you to make this discussion. What smaller scale Batman villains are you expecting to see in the series, if any? I've theorized that the Red Hood gang could be our villains, and that the finale could take place in Ace Chemicals' plant, and that the first time we properly see Batman is him knocking Red Hood into the vat of chemicals. So yeah, there's a lot of information there, and just that comment. Already we're diving into the Red Hood connection. There's so much that I feel like I'm going to dart around the place with all of the questions that I'm going to get to today, hopefully, because they could do this. They really could go so many different directions. Since this is Batman Year 1, they could honestly do a precursor or like a kind of a prequel building up to what I've spoken about in my Batman discussion series videos, and obviously it's completely theorized, but you know, let's just assume that Joker is out there in the world, but in a very Arkham Origin type way. He hasn't got that kind of dance between him and Batman, and in Arkham Origins, for example, that happens when he saves his life, and from there on out, the Joker more or less becomes obsessed with him. Now in this, not exactly like that, but what we could have is that in the background, depending on how much this is focused on, if focused on at all, they could have Bruce, quite literally, because Batman is out there. Like, he is literally out there right now, and the city is starting to talk about the rumors of the Bat. That's still happening in the Batman movie, but this is even a little bit more obscure. The GCPD are hearing about him. If we do get a Red Hood storyline where somebody does end up in a chemical vat, that really does depend if they're doing Joker in this trilogy, if they're even going to do the chemical vat origin, because there's multiple ways, multiple choice, as you guys know. I do think that would be a nice little nod if the main arc of the series is maybe going after one of the mob bosses in Gotham, but then you're having these sprinkled little stories from within Gotham being reported back to the GCPD. Maybe there's a story in the Gotham Gazette about a Red Hood gang near Ace Chemicals. That would kind of tell fans all they need to know, even without going fully ham into seeing the Batman actually do that, because that's one thing I think fans need to kind of temper a little bit of an expectation of, just because you're hearing these Red Hood theories and stuff like that, and as amazing as that is to imagine, don't expect to see in the Gotham PD series a suited up Bruce Wayne, like Robert Pattinson Batman, going in Ace Chemicals, Batman Jack Nicholson style falling in. That would be mind-blowingly really reaching to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen in that form. I think if anything like that happens, it will be teased. But kind of more further emphasis on this with other questions. But as for what smaller scale Batman villains am I expecting to see? Well, as you guys know in the trailer, I do feel like, considering what we see in the mayor's office, and obviously the mayor's kind of crowning one of his, you know, contributing achievements on the wall here, and it says something about a Maroni drug bust. Now, I think this series is going to tackle so many aspects. Like, there's so much potential here it's ridiculous to do world building for the Batman's Gotham. I mean, obviously this is set before the Batman movie, so that as I keep saying, that the amount of stuff they could flesh out here is insane. And that's why a lot of you guys are asking what villains or what things could they set up. I don't blame you, because they could do so much. And one of them, you have to think, is a little teaser in the trailer potentially, that when was that Maroni drug bust? It could have been set during the prequel series of Gotham PD. And I think it's more likely we're going to see something like that. Not necessarily like a proper sting operation, but yeah, someone at the GCPD, and we'll talk about who in a second, really finally getting on the tail of someone like Maroni, and it ending up in a successful drug bust, thus, I guess, elevating up Falcone's empire even more by the time of the Batman movie. So Gavin asks, do I think now only use a couple of villains will lay out the origins of many villains? Personally, I hope that they don't dive too deep into the rogues gallery in the show. The extent I'd like to see is the mob, Penguin beginning his plot to take over, and the origins of the drops. So yeah, just more emphasis here on what I was just already talking about. It's like, I don't think, and there's a lot of questions that I didn't necessarily pick to be in this video, even though I highlighted a couple of them, but a lot of people were asking the same thing. Do I expect certain Rogues Gallery members to pop up? And it's quite... no, like, actually, no. Like, you're not gonna see Killer Croc running around. I really don't think that's gonna be the case in the way that, for example, Fox's Gotham approached it through doing that. And this is where I'm gonna talk a little bit later about the differences between the shows. However, I truly do feel like this will be quite a more grounded, gritty, literal GCPD procedural, almost point of view driven, like Reeves says about the Batman, but through the perspective of this cop fighting for his soul, trying to do the right thing, I think, in a city that is relishing in corruption. And where's the worst corruption? In the GCPD. So I think it's mainly going to concentrate on that rather than the Batman side of things. Now, don't get me wrong, like, Batman will be weaved throughout it. I'm very confident of that. You can't not do that in the same city and setting of the canonical setting of Matt Reeves as the Batman. They are definitely going to do that, but just temper your expectations for it to be a bit more about establishing maybe the beginning of hope in the GCPD that Bruce takes notice of. For example, let's say this cop battling for his soul is, and I wouldn't have believed this when it first came out. I would have thought maybe it is more along the lines of Harvey Bullock or someone like that. But what if it is Jim? Like, Jim got to where he was or is as the character we know in the comics, but also hopefully in the movie with Jeffrey Wright obviously working with Batman, Batman happy to work with him over other scummy cops, for example. It could very well tell the story of Jim trying to not succumb to the corruptions of the GCPD, just like every other freaking detective has. And at the same time, I don't think that necessarily means, oh, he's got to be the white knight freaking police officer detective. No, he will probably do some shady stuff. But hence the battle for his soul, and that's who he will kind of become by the end of the series, I'm guessing, and also helping contribute to the person we see in the Batman as Detective James Gordon, not quite Commissioner though. As you guys know, like, without me getting too deep into it on this tangent, like, Jim Gordon proved himself to, like, the outside eyes of someone like Batman that he wasn't like every other cop in the GCPD. And I think that would still be a very interesting story to focus on in this season, even though there are other cops. Like, to be honest, every other cop is a candidate in the GCPD. And I know people would love to see explore Bullock. I'm still completely game for that. But this could be a really good opportunity to do a Jeffrey Wright kind of backstory. But I'm not sure, maybe he even has been a bad cop for quite some time before this point, because obviously Jeffrey Wright isn't in his early 30s. So maybe around this time in the show, he's already been a bit of a bent cop, but maybe finally he's turning a leaf, and that obviously sets up the events of how he turns that leaf. Batman takes notice, he starts working with Batman into the Batman movie, and that's, yeah, where we end up with him. The origin of the drops, though, as you said, I would prefer that. I would also like to see Penguin beginning to take over, but yet again, big characters and actors like Colin Farrell, I don't necessarily expect to make on-screen appearances. If it happens, very few and far between, but even then, I don't cringe at saying that, but I just really don't think that's going to happen. I feel like you're going to hear about those larger characters more in the background. Now, Jeffrey Wright, however, Jeffrey Wright has been a TV actor. Like, he's an amazing actor, whether he's been in one of the Bond movies, or obviously now the Batman, or Westworld on TV. So I fully believe that Jeffrey Wright's going to be in this show, whether that cop fighting for his soul is Jim Gordon or not. Like, I fully expect to see Jeffrey Wright in this, but yeah, Penguin not so much, but I do expect to see maybe things in the paper, who knows there, like Oswald Cobblepot has teamed up with, I don't know. But yeah, the drops is something I definitely expect to see addressed, especially considering by the time of the Batman movie, there are literal ads on billboards, like, you know, proper video billboards saying Gotham Health Department, do you need help, like, with the drops, contact Gotham Health Department, blah, 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 blah. So we're gonna see maybe that drug epidemic, if you will, hit the peak before we even see where it's at in the Batman movie. This is what I mean, there's quite a few plot threads that can be chased throughout this GCPD show. Maybe the main plot thread is the drug bust of Maroni, but then you have other world-building elements that are set up. This is what I mean, so many potential plot threads, like the drops. Maybe we'll see little side, not filler things, but like, because it's very relevant, of the drops being addressed in certain episodes. Maybe they get on the case of that. Maybe it's just a passing comment that another detective is handling that case. Maybe they mention the name of a hatter, or like somebody with a top hat who has been developing it, or maybe somebody who refers to himself as Joker. I don't know. This is what I mean. There's still a lot of lacking information here, but with what we've been teased with, we can really tee up the ball to go swing with in many different directions that are all very possible, which is why I love doing these discussion series, because there's so many ways that this can go, and all of them are exciting. Nathan asks here, do I think that Pattinson's Batman can make a cameo appearance in the series? So, when this first came out, I think my stance was it is possible, obviously, but maybe unlikely. I expect him to be done not completely in the shadows. So when I talk about Titans, for example, they have used Batman. There's usually an embargo on these characters like Joker and Batman not to be fully implemented like you're seeing me on camera right now. But if any implementation in a DC property or live action TV show is to be used and utilized, you can do him, but put a load of smoke there. You can only sort of see the silhouette of the figure, maybe the back of Joker, and you can make out the purple blazer or something. But that's usually how it's done. Now, with this, I wouldn't have had those reservations, because I think that they definitely will use the Batman in some way, shape, or form. But when you're starting to whip up kind of, you know, negotiations for big actors like Robert Pattinson, Colin Farrell to make Penguin appearances, it's a lot harder to believe. Jeffrey Wright is very believable, not putting down his stature or anything, but I fully believe that we will see him based on what I've kind of said a minute ago. Robert Pattinson, I think naturally being the Batman, I definitely think he would make an appearance, but I think there is a possibility of the sightings that you will see will be very few and far between teased. I think at best you might see like a silhouette on the rooftop that they might be looking at, or maybe somebody grapple hooking Batman animated series style between rooftops. That would be really dope. But the moment they might actually save for when you see a chiseled jawline and maybe actually Robert Pattinson in an alleyway maybe meeting Detective Gordon for the first time might be towards the end. Like that first comment that I answered in this video when they say that maybe the first time we properly see Batman is him knocking Red Hood into one of the chemical vats. Now, not that I think that is going to be the first case we see him, because I have big reservations and I'm very skeptical about Red Hood or the Red Hood gang being explored in the Gotham PD series. I'm not ruling it off completely, but I think they could do it, but would they really do that story in a TV show? And before getting into that tangent, what I want to mirror out of what SM4 Carnage said with his first question is, I do think, yes, we will see Batman, but I think they'll save that crowning moment of when you kind of do see him like you see me, because the reason why they will be able to use Batman like you're seeing me on camera right now is because it's in the same world as the freaking movie. So they will let them do that in the Gotham PD series. But I wouldn't expect Batman to be a series regular, not even a recurring role. The only recurring role aspect of him, I think, as I said, is when you see sightings of the Bat or something like that, which you don't need to get Pattinson in for. You can get a stand-in actor, you can CGI the distance shots, but when you do see him, I think you'll see him, but it'll be used very sparingly, and that will add a lot of gravity to the character when you first see him. I don't think they want to distract from the fact that this is meant to be a really grounded, about to say grotty, but yeah, Gotham can be grotty, but gritty detective, as they say, Gotham PD show. So this kind of goes, this is what I mean, is further expanding the already existing conversations in this video. ST Monster Player says, do you think that this show will include the takedown of Sal Maroni's drug empire as seen on the newspaper clippings on the mayor's wall in a teaser? Yes, I do. I think that makes the most sense. It just does. Like, that's an event that's happened. We don't know how long ago, but I don't think it would have happened that long ago. I think it's just such a perfect opportunity for the show to explore the Maroni drug bust. And that way, you see cops, you see certain cops being focused on in the show, one in particular battling for his soul. But who else will take an interest in the mob and the crime families of Gotham, Batman Year One style? You have feasted well. The Batman. He will probably be helpful in the Maroni drug bust takedown. I'm not saying, as I said, he will be in every scene and helping the cop every step of the way. But do you see where I'm going with this? But they could do something like that. That would be really dope, to be fair. For example, if this is Jim Gordon fighting for his soul, this is the first established relationship, if you will, between Batman and him. And their first rapport that they build with each other is to work together to take down the Maroni drug bust situation. That would be so good. But as I said, for the reasons I've already explained, I don't think they're going to go that ham on Batman in this series. So I do think that if it will be mimicking what I just said, Gordon or whoever, but let's just say Gordon for the sake of this argument, will be working on a Maroni drug bust. It will be successful. It will be eventually framed up in the mayor's office as we see during the trailer. But Batman takes a notice, maybe contacts Jim every now and again. Maybe there's an ambiguous letter sent to him at his desk saying, I've been watching you. If you want some help, go here. Something like that. And then when Jim goes to the location and it's like something really helpful to the case, you might see a flap of the cape kind of jump out the window or grapple off. So that would be the tasteful kind of teasers I expect until they're ready to present Pattinson on the screen. So Nicole says, hey Boba, hope you read this. I love the videos. Thank you very much, dude. So James Gordon in his, let's say, infancy of his detective career, nowhere near his commissioner status we know and love in the comics. How long do you think it would take in the series before we see him be Commissioner Jim Gordon? Side note, do you think we'll see characters like Barbara Gordon and characters like that at risk of seeming too much like Gotham? So yeah, I think it could show, well, regardless whether he's the main character or not, it will show a newbie Jim Gordon. In the movie, though, what I think you might be forgetting here is that he's still not commissioner, and the movie is set after this Gotham PD series, at least the first season. Now, words on this continuing for multiple seasons isn't a thing. It could be a limited series, like a one and done, 10 episode, 9 episode, 12 episode, season 1 thing. We honestly have yet to see with that because, well, you know, after the first season's done, and that's set during Batman Year 1, when the movie's set during Batman Year 2, if they do a second season, when's that going to be set? Are they going to wait until the second movie is out? Like, so that's what I mean. I do think that this could be a one and done kind of deal, but we're going to have to wait and see. So as for that reason, I don't think James Gordon, and I know for a fact, really, that he won't be commissioner because he's not commissioner in the movie. As for Barbara Gordon, the only thing, and there's a few questions I got asked about this, it's hard because the thing is, Jeffrey Wright is 55 years old, so technically, yeah, Barbara could be already alive. She could be like 13, she could be 16, she could be 18, depending how old he had her. So that's the thing, I don't know. Barbara could be mentioned. Thing is, will she? And if she is, then I do expect her to be mentioned in the film as well as the TV show. But don't expect anything Gotham Barbara Keene like. This TV show is going to be very different from the kind of more campy vibe of the Gotham TV show. This will be heavily grounded in the vibes that you get from that trailer of the Batman movie. It will be following suit with that to a T. It's not going to be like Penguin and Riddler kind of coming in and popping his head out the car window. Which, funnily enough, Lava Cake asks next, do you think that the new show will be less soap opera-ish than Gotham? Well, I love Gotham. I'll admit that it doesn't have the best writing or storytelling, especially compared to other DC-related work. So yeah, I don't think it will be, as I just kind of said. I hope the show goes in a more serious direction and really expands the Batman universe in the ways the movie won't have time to show. 100,000 billion%. Exactly. The movie can only fit so much of that glorious world that Matt Reeves is building through blending multiple cities into making Gotham, the characters. There's only so much you can achieve. So yes, this being set in that world will, this is what I mean for how much I was gushing over the possibilities at the beginning of this video, because there is so much potential in an episodic series that can possibly span up to, I don't know, what, 12 episodes? I don't know, it could be 16, but I feel like that might be too much for the budget for this. Who knows? I mean, it's the Batman, so they might want to really invest, considering this is in the same world. But as you're saying here, in ways that the movie won't have time to show, it would be nice to have some cool and interesting detective episodes with Gordon. Yes, it is. You nailed it on the head. It won't be like the Gotham Fox show, Fox's Gotham, and it will be everything that you said in the latter. Now, Nowhere here says, what do I think the plot of the series will be other than Gordon just doing regular police detective work? Love your videos. Thank you very much, dude. So, without repeating myself too much more, I think it will be very compelling. I mean, I don't think the Maroni drug bust will be just regular police detective work where we're thinking, oh man, this is going to be exciting. It's connected to the Batman. It's even got Jeffrey Wright in it, but it's not actually that interesting. No, I think it really will be, because as I said, even if there is the Maroni drug bust case and he's working that, could you imagine how interesting it will still be? Like this one cop battling for his soul, as they say. You have other cops in there who might be working the same case, letting things slide. We might see Jeffrey Wright's Gordon get really frustrated with that. Like he genuinely might be trying to do something good, but you have all of these bent cops who are on Maroni's payroll, for example, ruining, I don't know, these case turning points that Jeffrey Wright's Gordon is just on the precipice of cracking a certain thing, and then this corrupt cop, or maybe even the chief or someone like that, might completely flush it down the toilet. That's interesting enough alone for me, that kind of drama of trying to pursue a case in every way of justice that you can and should be doing as a GCPD detective, especially when you've got Maroni involved and how, like, the GCPD is so corrupt. It's ridiculous. Matt Reeves is also heavily emphasized that in his world, it is 10 times more corrupt even. So that's very interesting to me to explore that character having to navigate that. I also like the idea of a GCPD detective battling for his soul, just in of itself, because it could mean, as I kind of detailed earlier, that he has done some bad things, but maybe he's trying to finally make a change. That would be very interesting to see that just through James Gordon, because that would be kind of character accurate. But then, as I kind of detailed as well, there's so many other avenues they can do. Teasers of the Batman. This is the Batman's first year. There's newbie things that will happen. Like, I'm not saying we're going to see that, but could you imagine Batman Year 1 when we see him in the trailer, we see Robert Pattinson's Batman get shot in the chest in Year 2. So there will be like an overarching plot, I believe, but expect little subplots of the vigilante of Gotham. Expect other like frustrations and tensions rising between fellow GCPD officers, the corruption trying to get slightly rooted out through Jim Gordon, or maybe Batman even reaching out as the Drifter, but maybe not as Batman himself, to certain police officers, because that's the interesting thing. Even in Batman Year 2, when the movie is set, Gotham doesn't quite know, or everyone in Gotham doesn't quite believe about the Batman, about his existence is what I'm trying to say. But it has been reported, like it has. I mean, for crying out loud, he's on the crime scene with people seeing him there, but still, it's not a fully believed thing. Now in Batman Year 1, when the Gotham PD show is set, I feel like that's only more interesting, to be honest, because he's going out there as Batman, but as I kind of said in that example earlier, imagine Batman giving a tip to an officer he kind of trusts, and maybe Bruce wants him to prove his trust to him. So almost in like, do you remember in the Gotham finale, for those who watched it, when Batman was talking to Jim when he was going up the stairs and he jumps out the window? Imagine something like that. That would be another whole plot thing to follow. So I think it's going to be very entertaining, and there's going to be multiple different branches off the main tree trunk of story that will really engage us fans. So Blitz asks, when do I think the show will take place? I know I've already detailed this, but I do want to bring it up again just because, well, he's saying I'm hoping for it to take place in between films 1 or 2, or maybe take place during the films, but showing the perspective of the GCPD. So we know for a fact it's set during Batman Year 1. At DC Fandom, Matt Reeves did detail, and I've got it right here, he said that the Gotham PD series will focus on a department in the Batman universe's Year 1, as the masked vigilante, the Batman, starts to unsettle this city, which, you know, is very interesting in of itself, because this is what I mean through what I've been trying to spit out during this video. There's going to be chatter in episodes amongst officers being like, have you heard of that bat, that Batman, or like this vigilante? Like, it's gonna make not only people like the crime families nervous, because can you imagine he's already maybe visited and done that line from Year 1, or maybe that even happens in this freaking show. Can you imagine? You have eaten well. For example, I'm pulling up the artwork now of Smart Sheep, and I've shown this before, but he tried to do the Year 1 comic panel frames into the live action with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and obviously Falcone, and oh my god, I would go freaking mental if something similar happens like this, because it has the potential to, kind of pertaining to what I said earlier about how they might save the actual appearance of Robert Pattinson for a really cool moment like this. Obviously, the city is getting very unsettled. Maybe bent cops are getting unsettled. Maybe some cops just don't like the fact that a vigilante in of itself, being the meaning, is taking the law into his own hands. Reeves goes on to say that the show will be from the perspective of one particular crooked cop, and the story is actually a battle for his soul. And I still stand by this, that could still indeed be Jeffrey Wright's Jim Gordon, who might actually be a bent cop or a crooked cop, wrestling with the fact that he might not want to be that, even in Batman Year 1. And he might be kind of a much better cop by Batman Year 2, when the Batman movie takes place. But he's still not Commissioner there. Don't forget, he's still not Commissioner. That still happens after this movie. Maybe by the end, but I kind of doubt it. Maybe we might see Jim Gordon become Commissioner in the second or third movie. Who knows? So JDG says, when do I roughly think that the show will release, and do I think that the show could be more than one season? So we've already spoken about how I think it could be a limited series. If not, it could go on for multiple seasons, but like, it could be something as long as how long Westworld takes to come out. Sometimes there's like a couple years in between that, and then as I articulated earlier, like if this is a prequel, which it is, as we factually know, to the movie, Batman Year 2 is the first movie, this is Batman Year 1, so it's set beforehand when the Riddler's captured. Is that just as Batman Year 2 ends for Bruce? Because we know that the movie is set 1 year, 6 months in, but it's the events of the movie over a 6-month period, because then he will be entering Year 3. This is what I mean. So could they save the filming for Season 2? For in between those, like, we don't know. So I think it's a 50-50. It could be a limited series, but they do have the capacity to make an in-between the Batman #1 movie and the second movie of the trilogy. As for the date, it's really hard because Terrence Winter dropped out, I believe, because of, I think, creative differences, apparently. And another writer's now come on board to write the show. But also, even with that said and done, like, it's 2021 now. We haven't heard too much about it. It could be possible that it comes around fall of next year. That wouldn't surprise me that it would be releasing after the movie is out, if that makes sense, because it could just, you know, even though it's a prequel, it could still be very interesting. Well, it will be still very interesting to watch a Jeffrey Wright that we see in the movie slightly beforehand, maybe being a bit more crooked, or maybe if it's about another cop, it doesn't really matter. It could add more clarity to the drops that we see during the movie. Even if we get all that clarification during the movie about the drops, maybe we actually get to see how it happens in the prequel, which would be really cool, especially if we find out during the movie that it has something to do with the Red Hood gang. Then we know that the Gotham PD series could touch upon that. So this is what I mean. So I don't know. I think it will come out after the movie. So it could be an end of 2022 release date, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like spring 2023. But I could be completely off there. So King DeWeed asks, first of all, I love your videos. Thank you very much, man. Keep up the good work, Boba. So do you think Harvey Dent can make an appearance as the district attorney, and who do you think would be the main antagonist of the series? So we spoke about the second one. I do think it is likely to be Maroni. Just without repeating myself too much more, I think that makes the most sense. If you have that framed in the mayor's office, why not? And that's a thing of the past. This is in the past. May as well explore that, but obviously many other little tethers or plot as well. But Harvey Dent, no, just because right now we know Gil Colson is the district attorney, and he's the one who has a bomb tied to his neck that blows up during the movie. So I don't think Harvey Dent is even the DA. I think maybe Gil Colson's death in the first Batman movie paves the way for the district attorney opening to be filled by Harvey Dent, maybe in the second movie, to be the youngest district attorney ever. That would be very accurate, but that would mean, especially considering the time of this series, which is set before the Batman movie, and the Batman movie has Gil Colson as DA, well, that means that, obviously, Harvey Dent will just be maybe an assistant district attorney or something like that, who knows. But yeah, Harvey Dent, he could still make an appearance maybe, but he wouldn't be the DA, because we know he's just not. That's somebody else right now. Now, I really love this comment from Useless Commenter, because it kind of builds upon what I was saying earlier with, do you think Matches Malone could become a character in this show? I'm asking this because when he isn't Batman disguised or Joe Chill alternative, he's actually a really interesting character that could fit in well with a show like this. So I don't expect to see Bruce in his, and apparently he's referred to as Drifter in this movie. So it's Matches Malone. As we know, Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne goes out on the bike. We've seen it in the trailer, but also many set photos where he's got the kind of snoot over his face, he's got a hoodie up, and there are many theories as to, even what I've discussed recently, maybe Bruce Wayne has, well, we know that Batman has a little drifter mode, incognito mode anyway, to get some intel. Like, he drove right up to the GCPD press conferences in the trailer, and he wanted to hear and see what they were saying. He wanted to be there himself. But also, what I really love about recent theories that we've kind of explored is that maybe Bruce Wayne hasn't actually revealed to the public that he returned to Gotham, and that only happens during the events of the first movie, as in 1 year, 6 months in. That would be really dope. That's kind of a question for another time that I explored in my previous debate Batman discussion video, which I definitely recommend checking out because that theory is really cool and I really love it. It's something new but also accurate. It could dispel how Bruce Wayne and Batman arrived in the city at the same time. Long story short, Bruce could have arrived very sneakily in Gotham, but due to his criminological experiment to be the Batman and really going ham at it for the first 1 year and 6 months, he's gone full-time Batman in the first 1 year and 6 months, but maybe to draw out the attention of the Riddler during the first movie, he then comes out as a public persona of Bruce Wayne, maybe to even bait the Riddler since popular people are dying or whatever. But that theory aside, what I still love about that, and the reason why it pertains to this, is because Bruce's drifter mode that we've seen in photos and in the trailer could still be used in this series, and you don't need Pattinson to have an actor because he's in a hoodie, he's got a backpack on, he's on his motorbike, he's got something covering half his face, almost like a face mask. He's very incognito, matches Malone. Bruce is, incognito mode, basically, undercover. So I would love to see a stand-in actor in the background of certain scenes, and we know that's Batman, but he doesn't want to reveal to people that he's Bruce Wayne trying to eavesdrop in on the police situation. Do you know what I mean? And maybe, as I kind of pertained to earlier with my theories, with maybe the drifter sending a letter to Jim Gordon or this cop, for example, and then when Jim arrives to a scene that the Batman helped him with, we see somebody ride off on a motorbike in the drifter mode, not in the Batman suit. Who knows? There's so much potential there that you can still involve Pattinson's character of Batman and Bruce in drifter mode, but still technically not using Pattinson until you're ready to actually maybe really impress the audience with an ending scene of an episode. For example, what I said with how Smart Sheep did that live action kind of concept art of the Batman Year One scene. Take my money. But yeah, useless commenter, I completely agree. So I think with what you were getting at there is that maybe the Batman drifter mode or disguise mode of Matches Malone, or basically what the film is referring to as his drifter mode, could be used really interestingly in this show in terms of how he could be walking and talking. I don't think that would happen, but I do think it's quite likely that we'll see Batman's drifter mode not walking and talking, but present quite a bit because, well, this is his city and Batman is already here. As Reeves said himself, the Bat's arrival in the city is starting to unsettle the city, and he's going to be watching everybody's reactions, and nobody will know that that's freaking Bruce Wayne right there, the Batman, just in some incognito clothes on a bike, and I love that. The Resident Nerdman says, do I think that the show will tackle topics like police brutality and racism considering it is Gotham City, or do you think that they'll dodge those topics in favor of something not so serious? I 100% think they will. It's almost to not do it would be really weird. This is Gotham, as you said yourself. Considering it's Gotham City, it would be stupid to not implement police brutality. Obviously, and if anyone calls that being too woke or something, that's just so dumb because Gotham. So yeah, I expect to see that sprinkled in there. I think it will be very organically sprinkled in there because, well, as we know, police brutality in Gotham, bent cops who don't give a flying crap. Yeah, that just goes with the nature and the flow of things. So it would be weird for them to not do that in favor of something not so serious. It's just, yeah, I can practically guarantee you we're going to see stuff like that. But guys, even with more questions to go, I'm going to end this video here because I think we've spoken and I've rambled enough. So I would love to know your thoughts on this. Would you like to see another part? Because, hey, I had a great time and I still feel like we can speak forever about this, even though we've been given even less than on this topic than we have the Batman movie. But the interesting thing is that because this connects to the Batman movie, I still feel like we can literally talk about this just as much. We know quite a bit about the movie through the trailer, there's so many behind the scenes things, a lot of teasers and clues from Reeves when he was spitting facts at DC fandom, and now we have teasers of the timeline of the prequel of this show and how this pertains to a cop fighting for his soul and how that can connect. Yeah, you get my point. We can talk about this quite a lot more. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on my theories. Please expand upon them because I love reading your comments. And if you got this far in the video, as always, to prove it, because you are definitely one of the real ones if you made it this far, put along with whatever comment you were going to put in the comment section at the beginning, hashtag GCPD. And I mean G with 2 E's, C with 2 E's, P with 2 E's, and D with 2 E's, because, yeah, it's like Gotham, GCPD. I'll never, yeah, one thing I miss most about Gotham is when we heard Jim showing them. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like this video if you did enjoy it. Of course, subscribe if you aren't subscribed already, because a lot of you aren't subscribed. My YouTube tells me that over 60% of you aren't subscribed. So if you're still finding yourself here without an account, or still not subscribed because you just kept typing my name in, or it was recommended to you, hit the subscribe button. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Bat family in the next video. Goodbye.